Welcome people to the FEE3 presentation for the completed ROM hack of Fire Emblem Inheritance. My name is Haynes and I help the creators with proofreading the writing of the hack. Fire Emblem Inheritance is an FE8 hack whose main purpose is to experiment with the gameplay and create a more complex and mature game compared to the average Fire Emblem. In the developer's opinion, the GBA Fire Emblem game is too simple to offer a real difficulty. Once a player learns the mechanics and is able to deal with some basic math, the skill requirement is basically non-existent, and the only real difficulty is given by situations where the level design requires the player to make choices based on the RNG. Therefore, the first goal of Fire Emblem Inheritance is to enrich the basic GBA gameplay with a mixture of old and modern mechanics, with several new gimmicks added in to many maps. The game is intended to be a challenge for an experienced player of the series. The maps are very big and the chapters take a long time to beat. This is so that resets in the event of a loss of a unit are discouraged. The player will also have to manage a large number of units in an optimized way, without having the ability to farm experience or money.
Hey everybody, my name is Essie and I'm one of the writers working on Inheritance. I'm so excited to get to share this game with you guys, but before we jump into anything too deep, let's start with the basics. The game has 3 difficulty modes: normal, hard, and maddening. The original mode that the game was intended to be played on is hard mode. It's perfect for veteran players from other hacks and games. Normal mode is simpler than hard mode, and it's definitely the way to go if you're a player who's looking to enjoy the story and characters. Maddening mode, on the other hand, is a difficulty that should only be played by those who have already finished the game and are looking for an additional challenge. It's definitely not for the faint of heart like me. Stuck on that one chapter you just can't beat? Well, if your pride allows you, you can change the difficulty at the beginning of each chapter by holding down the select button. It's super important to keep in mind that this game is always solvable without RNG. The devs made sure to make the game so you're never forced to take risks based on it. The RNG element is used in favor of the player, saving your favorite unit in case you accidentally made an uncalculated move. That being said, it's hard to develop a safe and optimized strategy based on simple math because of the number of different elements that can affect your game. Plus, abusing the RNG to save your characters can lead to really long maps. Trust me on this one, it did not work out for me at all. The game gives you so many different possibilities to tinker with. There are more than 45 recruitable units, and most of them can promote into 2 different classes. Each map is large, and since you've got so many unique characters to play with, you've got endless ways to face a map. Having so many valid options makes it difficult to choose what kind of strategy to roll with, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges in Inheritance. Speaking of units, the army's extremely customizable. The variety of classes and skills is huge, and the game's been beaten with the weirdest combos. Cavalry only? Strictly flying units? 5 armored units? Check, check, and check. All of these playstyles were used by some players who managed to make their runs unique with the kind of units they were deploying. As for me, well, let's stop here before I embarrass myself any further. I think that should cover all of the basics. I'll send it over to Haynes as we move on to the gameplay.
Now, when it comes to the range of weapons, it's very different from the traditional Fire Emblem. The basic range of bows usually goes up to 3 or 4, while the range of anima magic starts from 1 to 3 and then up to 7 to 8 for siege stones. All of these more or less have a minimum of 20 uses and are easy to get for the player. Anima magic also gets the Radiant Dawn treatment, with the double trinity of magic added in. Additionally, each type of anima magic is also effective against a certain group of enemies. Fire is effective against the undead, wind against flying units, and thunder against wyverns and enemy dragons. The range of staves has also been increased. Heal is 1 to 2 range, while recover is 1 to 4, and the majority of the remaining staves are 1 to magic divided by 2. Given all these advantages that they now have, magical units are now even frailer than usual when you compare them to physical units. Weapon balance is also very different from the classic Fire Emblem. Weapons in general do more damage, such that one-man armies aren't a possibility. Since taking hits well is much harder now, knights become more useful. Not to mention, they also receive the modern standard of increasing their movement to 5 so that they don't fall behind and can actually contribute something. Effective weaponry is also a little bit different than usual, in that it works on double effectiveness. However, they are superior to steel weapons to compensate, with a steep increase in price added on top. Cavalry has always been excellent in GBA Emblem. Well, except for Ford, I guess, but he's still decent. Anyways, this hack makes abusing them less prevalent though, as enemies are equipped with the means to counter them, and the greater range of weapons means that rushing ahead with one single cavalier will usually result in a dead unit. Another nerf to their offense is that they cannot use specialized weaponry. This is a new type of weapon which foot units can use, but cavalry cannot. For example, great swords can only be used by mercenaries, heroes, and generals, while pikes can only be used by halberdiers and armored units. Enemies will also have smarter AI according to their class, and will not attack anyone they can't damage. Also, like you would in real life, if an enemy is at 50 or 30% HP, they will retreat. Monsters, however, are irrational, and will attack senselessly with no regards to their safety, if they can do damage to you, that is. It makes them easier to fool, but they're still powerful, and if you're not well prepared, they may end up surprising you. They also boast high HP and defense. The weapons of the Blessed, Silver, and Holy categories, or light magic, deal triple damage to monster units. This makes dealing with humans and monsters very different in general. The key to playing Fire Emblem Inheritance in an optimized way is mastering the character's skill system. Each character has a personal skill and a class skill. Each class takes at least one more skill before promoting, and even more skills once they promote. Personal skills are usually more distinct and varied, while the skills a character takes in one given class, however, are usually consistent with the class itself, and serve to better differentiate classes like the Swordmaster or the Assassin. Classes that usually tend to be too similar in the vanilla GBA games. Each class has a movement skill as its characteristic skill. Usually how it goes is physical infantry classes have Shove or Smite, mounted classes have Canto, then Canto Plus once they promote, and magical classes have Reposition instead. Utilizing movement skills to their best potential allows for multiple options to tackle a map, and are essential to optimize play. Other differences in the gameplay to note is that in this hack there is a strength and magic split present, and some classes are even able to utilize both. Also, that units that belong in the same class can end up having different promotion branches. For example, the two fighters of the game have different promotions. One can become a hero or a warrior, while the other can become a hero or a war monk, which is a new class that uses axes and staves. To wrap up the gameplay segment, many enemies have valuable stealables, so be wary of their inventories to see what you can get. And finally, stat boosters give passive bonuses if held in the inventory. For example, a Speedwing provides +1 speed as a passive bonus if you hold on to it.
Now we're on to the story. First, it's important to remember that Inheritance's storyline has more intricate relationships and darker themes than that of the average Fire Emblem game. Additionally, the game contains content that could hurt younger or more sensitive viewers. For that reason, we've made two different versions of the game, a mature version and a PG-13 version for more sensitive people. The hack is actually split into two because the developer's vision for the whole game wasn't able to be written in a single GBA ROM. For now, we've decided to release the first half and continue working on the second half for its future release. Combined, the two games will have at least 50 chapters, and the first half contains 26. Hey, wait a minute! 50 divided by 2 isn't 26. The game is set in a distorted alternate universe version of Elite. Some of the characters, concepts, and kingdoms will be recognizable, but will appear in different lights than the mainline game showed them in due to the plot's complexity. I think it's time to give a quick shout out to the devs. Even though they're non-native English speakers, they were able to conceive the entire script of Part 1 on their own. That said, writers including Haynes and myself are working to improve and polish the dialogue in Part 1, as well as revising Part 2 when it arrives. Thank you so much for checking out Fire Emblem Inheritance. If you have any questions to ask of us, don't hesitate to write away on our Fire Emblem Universe page. Stay safe out there and game on!